I just saw my therapist. I was about to start writing another email, but so well, I guess I'll make a video. I have this formula where I'll make a video, then I'll start writing, and then I'll put the video in the email, and I'll send it out. You know. I know he just wants me to quit. I know that that's like, you know, now that he knows that I know it's about the women. And he'll just be awful, and he'll hold them, right? Until at the very least, right? They make public statements, and those are insufficient. Those are insufficient. Only as far as the psychic mind game is concerned, you get it? Only as far as psychic occultism is concerned, right? That everything that he does with cameras is a sadistic black magic spell of evil. It's an act of deception and guile. Right? And so that's how he's operated the entire time. Right? And so he set up Tribeca, and he set up the film the same way. Right? Where he wanted to cast this spell over my mind and compel me into fame by submitting my mind to him. Right? And now he's attempting to cast the same kind of spell over the world with the film. Where he compels a bunch of people to conceive children because they don't recognize that he's actually deeply sexually sadistic and controls in an unhealthy way several different women and constantly is essentially raping them by the same tactics that he compels all these people to conceive with, right? Right? So my point is that he overextended himself as a psychic, right? And this is why I got upset when I turned my back. And in my mind, it was for purely selfish reasons. But on the highest levels of clairvoyant resonance, it's because of the braid. It's because of like the braid of psychic intention that he's like trying to force upon the world, right? In my mind, it was that, but it was only in relation to me. It was like a single thread within the rope, right? That I felt jilted by the fact that he respected my mind so little that he could watch me for 2 months and still feel like he can compel me up onto that stage, right? And so on the highest levels, right, he needed to offer one piece of legitimacy to that magic spell, which was allowing those women to get me to play the role without any sort of anything. That's the point. Only as far as like his design is, right? It's not that he's not allowed to test me, right? But if everyone around him is disgusted with those tactics and have been for a long time, and they want out because he can't forgive me for not playing his game, that's it. The spell's broken. That's it. You can't use any of those people anymore. You'll never succeed, right? And so now, the psychological frequency of that celluloid, like of all those master reels, right, is bile. Right? It's not magic, it's not light. Right? And so the critical establishment, therefore, are going to be critical. They're going to say that it's a sequence of disgusting rape fantasies and that no one should go watch it who expects to maintain a healthy psychological understanding of their sexual identity. Yes, that's the point. That's the point. But if he had given me the role and told me the truth, brought me in fully, right? Let me know what he was trying to do. Let the women explain to me what he wanted to do. Right? Then this light that I bestow upon the world now, right, would be imbued in every one of those master reels. Right? And that, people would have seen that. They would have seen my light. Right? When I walked out with Quentin at the Cannes Film Festival. And this is what the women all saw. You get it? Right? And so this is like this only as far as clairvoyance is concerned, right? That's only as far as clairvoyance is concerned. Right? Dick Van Dyke didn't have to do anything of the kind to make Mary Poppins. Right? But did Mikey Madison, right, make a Nora to initiate everyone into her as a sexual animal for Quentin at the behest of Quentin because he plays chess? You get it? Of course, Sydney's always been a freak. She'll get naked, no trouble. Right? Euphoria? And I haven't watched it. I watched some of season 1, but it started to bore me. But I saw my therapist. He asked me where all the smut came from in my novel. I thought, oh, that's a good question. It's a good psychological question. Of course, it's because of Quentin. No other reason. No other reason. My other novel was about a quadriplegic who couldn't move from his chair. He didn't fuck nobody. Right? And a little boy who raises himself alone in the library. There's no other people. It's just him. Right? And then so what does that say about clairvoyance? What does that say about writing, right? About identity, right? That I always feel alone. Doesn't it? Right? And when Quentin turned his back, right, I said, oh, he wants my mind. He's trying to, and I got scared. And the thought of getting laid, definitely all those things. Right? I was supposed to do it in exchange for like a soulmate. Because of my vow, and that I've been alone long enough. Is like the message as far as like Quentin and like offering up the sovereignty of my mind in that way. But right, it is my contention that he has greatly overextended himself, and if he is so devoted to this idea of like complete control over everything, then he has to be prepared to lose all of it any moment. That's the rule. That's the rule. Right? Did magic, esotericism, occultism, psychic occultism, all these things, right? That's what I put in the last email. If there's any interference, right? If there's like anything's perpendicular, right? If it doesn't flow, right? If it's not neat, smooth sine waves, right? Braiding together to make, right, a coagulate, and there's no beauty. It's disjointed. There's no magic. Like, that's the rule. That's the rule. Absolute unity, right? Or you fail every time, right? So he wants people to get turned on by his sexual sadism, right? Now it's impossible. Because no matter what, right? All of his peers are seeing that film in a new light. Even if I just get the witches and we take everything down and it never becomes public, right? That's the point. That now, as a result of refusing to reconcile with me in any way, which seems pretty obvious now, includes allowing the women to come to me. Though I don't know that. But it seems like that's the only reason it's gone on this long. Right? In so doing, right, he aborted his magic. That's the point. Right? Magic only truly exists in authenticity. Right? In purity of heart. Right? And so you could do fucked up shit. Right? But you'll never succeed as a practitioner if you steal the ability of anyone involved from being independent. Right? They have to all want to be there willingly. Otherwise, you can't succeed. Right? So, again, if there's any validity to my claims, the California Film Commission, it can be argued, it needs to shut down. That's like, it's an easy legal argument. Right? The crew, you can't insure any production that's shot in the state where the state sanctions first-degree felonies. There's no reasonable expectation of safety, right? So they have to shut down. They can do animated films, but no cameras, like no with actors, no performers, right? That Hollywood, death knell, right? That's what we're in right now. And so Quentin can get some perverse joy out of that, can he? And I know that depresses him and might make him kill himself. Because he was so unresolved in his mind that, right, he either gets a perverse joy out of the thought of destroying the film industry because he feels that film is dead anyway. But if it's all an act of deception and cunning and guile, and he loves the movies, and he just says all of those things because he's deeply ill and can't not do this thing, right, then it stands to reason that if, as a result of his actions, no one ever makes any movies in LA ever again, right? I don't want him to do that, honestly. I don't like the idea of like psychic granddad. I know that's like kind of how he sees it on some level. Like, oh, if I submit to this man, then he's putting me in the old folks' home, which, right, the psychic old folks' home to a lot of people is the psychiatric hospital, like 100%. But I don't see it that way. I see it as us, right? Like we just have to live differently. Like I have to be more open. I have to be more submissive. Like sure, like I admit that. Like I know that there's enough room in my mind for you, Quentin. I know that. But you have to be more loving and genuine and not the way that you are. Right? And in compelling them to stay, if that is true. Right? That's a high crime. That's a high crime against the Almighty. And so, right? Your film can't succeed. I prophesy. He comes to tell us of the players. Huh? Oh, tee hee hee hee. Right? He's so cynical. He thinks that it doesn't matter. I don't know what he thinks. Did I write the U.S. Copyright Office and say you should strip their copyright? Right? Did I write the Chinese government or write every film commission in the world? Right? Is that, like, is that funny? Is that helping your film? You don't think that those people aren't talking to each other? But I don't like the idea of, like, being an asshole. That doesn't, like, right? I was an asshole to him in that moment, and I am ashamed of that. Sure, because I see how ill he is. But for him to be this way all this time, I can't act like it doesn't merit a real conversation, right, with the authorities. It doesn't merit me being able to see those women in person. This is my soul. This is my psyche, right? And the thought of Hollywood all saying, well, you get him to kill himself, that's cool, but he sues, that's fine too. That's like, that sickens me on such a primal level, on such a pure, esoteric level. Right? That now it is incumbent upon all of us to demand higher standards from people in places of power, especially as it pertains to show business and the arts. These tactics are rooted in destruction. Everything that he has done has been to manipulate and control everyone around him his entire life. I saw it as a Faustian pact for money. And I see now that it was a Faustian pact for love, which I would have willingly made, of course. And I guess money too, I don't know. Would it have only been Mikey? No, I think it was always going to be all four of them, actually. That's how sick your industry is. That's like, right? And I'll admit, I'm not a normal person, like I have a broad array of skills, right? I'm like Liam Neeson and Taken, specific set of skills that covers essentially everything that the mind can conceive or consider. And so in that way, perhaps it's easy for me to say it would be all four, but my point is that if that entire industry is in such a state of spiritual rot and decay, then all that has to occur is that we all just have to be honest. That's it. That's it. Be actually honest. And so, who among you is prepared to say, I have no honesty in my heart?